Fighting Spirit Unleashed reactions. WWE Super Showdown reactions. Comparing AJ Styles to Shawn Michaels. Shoot or Work on the Weekly Wrestling Rumors, and Swerve Me Wrong. Bad booking is not the reason WWE ratings are down. My name is Michael Valente, this is Ralph Valente, and you're listening to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Sunday night, we had New Japan Pro Wrestling Fighting Spirit Unleashed. We saw the re-air on Access TV Friday night, and the big takeaway from this is that for the second time in New Japan history, the IWGP Heavyweight Championship will be decided in a triple threat match, and that was announced after the main event of Okada and Ishii versus the Golden Lovers, Kenny Omega versus Ibushi. Now, at the end of the match, Omega says that he's going to have the rematch with Ibushi.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, Cody Rhodes comes out and says, whoa. Let's do this instead. Cody, Ibushi, Omega, triple threat match. And Omega loves it. And throughout the whole exchange, Ibushi just kind of looks disappointed. Mm-hmm. He wants the one-on-one match. But what do you see from this triple threat match that's going to happen this Tuesday at King of Pro Wrestling?
Well, it's certainly going to be interesting. I think one of the things that you might have to consider is if Cody comes out of this winning that title, is he now going to be he'd be a Triple Crown champion pretty much, or?
Well, he would have the IWGP US Championship, right, which he just won from Juice Robinson the same night, and he would win the Heavyweight Championship. I mean, he is on such a roll winning all these championships. I wonder if they're making him a belt collector to help his value if he decides to jump ship and go to WWE and really make that contract so lucrative that WWE is going to have to empty out the bank to get him.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily what's happening. I think one of the things I noticed overall from the show is if they're truly going to compete with the WWE, they really need a guy to be the face of that. And Kenny Omega is great. He's a really good talent and he's a decent promo, but at the same time, they need that big star who's going to attract people from WWE and convince them to start watching their product. You know, because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's an alternative to WWE. So somebody, a recognizable face like Cody Rhodes, because he was in the WWE, much better character outside of the WWE, at least right now. Kenny Omega, granted, he's got a lot of star power and people know who he is. It's going to be difficult for them to attract the more hardcore younger fans from WWE to watch that product because, you know, they may not necessarily know who he is. I think a good amount of the hardcore fans know who Kenny Omega is. I know who he is, you know who he is, but the younger demographic, if they're going to pry eyes away from WWE product, you're going to need somebody who's more recognizable. So why not build up Cody, somebody who's already been there, and then get exposure to some of the other bigger names like Kenny Omega and some of the other guys?
Now, the other thing, too, is they are probably prolonging the inevitable of Omega versus Ibushi for the title.
Right.
You know, maybe they're setting this up for Wrestle Kingdom, but in order for that to happen, Ibushi would need to win the briefcase from Tanahashi. Mm-hmm. Now, they are setting up a match at King of Pro Wrestling where Tanahashi will go up against Switchblade Jay White for the briefcase. Now, if you have Switchblade win, Ibushi can win it from Switchblade, or Ibushi can win it from Tanahashi. Either way, there has to be something between now and January where Ibushi wins the briefcase, Omega wins, and keeps the title.
Right. And
that's going to be your main event at Wrestle Kingdom. I think that's what they're setting up. And I think Cody coming in and interjecting that, basically, with him winning the U.S. Championship, he can take the pin at the triple threat, protect himself and Ibushi, because Cody still has the U.S. Championship. He doesn't need the Heavyweight Championship right now, I don't think. And plus, he's going to have his 2 out of 3 falls match with Nick Aldis coming up. So I don't think he's actually going to win the match. I think Omega will still win the match this Tuesday, and Ibushi will need to find a way to face Omega at Wrestle Kingdom and get that briefcase.
It could be. I mean, any of those things could happen. I'm just giving you my my take on it.
Now, there were some really great matches on this card, but what do you think was the best match of the night? I think, without a shadow of a doubt, I know Meltzer gave the main event the 5 stars, but to me, the best match of the night, without question, was Will Ospreay versus Marty Scurll.
Yeah. And I agree with that. To me, this was the one match I was most excited for. And, you know, based on their previous matches, I had high expectations, and they met my expectations, exceeded my expectations. So to me, if you were to say what was the best match of the night, I would have said this one for sure. I
agree, and it was a very fast-paced match from the get-go, and that's what I loved about it. Yep. And you got the Spanish Fly as soon as the match started. Right. Scurll goes right after Ospreay, and he goes right for the standing Spanish Fly. It was an amazing spot, and I think the best spot of the match, they were going for the ring apron Spanish Fly, and I even yelled this out. I said, "Don't do this! Don't do this!" Yep. Marty Scurll stops and holds on to the rope to prevent it from happening. And I thought that was great storytelling, and they really put that up with Kevin Kelly and Jim Ross in the commentary, saying they tried this, and Marty Scurll caught it this time. And a great win for Marty Scurll. He'll go up against Kushida for the Junior Heavyweight Championship this Tuesday at King of Pro Wrestling. So that's going to be a good match. You have the triple threat match coming up at King of Pro Wrestling. And, you know, Tuesday away, and you got another possible great pay-per-view for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So if you're new to New Japan Pro Wrestling, I definitely would watch this show on New Japan World or wherever you could search the matches, and maybe subscribe and watch King of Pro Wrestling coming up. When we come back from the Squared Circle Psychobabble, our reactions to Super Showdown on Saturday morning. This is going to be a fun discussion. It's coming up next on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Are you following the Squared Circle Psychobabble on social media? If not, you better get onto it. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. It's the WWE Super Showdown reactions here. My name is Michael Valente. This is Ralph Valente. And overall, what'd you think of the show?
Overall, I thought it was a good show. I don't think it was great. Some of the matches definitely didn't live up to the expectations that I had for them. Kind of middle of the road type pay-per-view, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Right. I thought the show started off pretty well with the Bar and the New Day for the Tag Team Championships. And a good, solid match, got the crowd going. And then we have our second match of the night, Charlotte Flair versus Becky Lynch for the Women's Championship match on SmackDown. Good match, screwy finish. What do you think of the screwy finish?
Not surprising given what the WWE has done recently. You know, I had high expectations for this match, and it pretty much lived up to the expectations I had until the end of it. I guess they're doing this to prolong the feud. I feel bad for the fans who were in attendance because you had roughly 70,000 plus people there. So, you know, I feel like the WWE goes to the well one too many times with the finishes like this.
I didn't mind the finish too much because it further prolongs the story. What I don't like is that they already announced that they're making this a rematch on SmackDown, and you know they're setting this up to be a match at Evolution. So why do you put the match on SmackDown? And it's going to get to a point where you see it so many times, you're not going to care for it.
Right. And that's my biggest gripe, and we'll get into some of the other matches throughout the night. But the WWE does this on a consistent basis where in order to prolong a storyline, they have a screwy finish. And like you just pointed out, if you do that too much, you know, your fans are going to get wise to that. And one, they're either going to stop caring about it, or two, they're going to stop watching. So, you know, it is what it is. I understand why they did it. I just don't think that. I think eventually the fans are going to catch on to this, and it's not good for business at the end of the day.
Well, overall, the match I thought was good. Do you think the match was at least good?
The match was good, yeah. So, I just wasn't a fan of the finish.
Right. And for those that don't know, Charlotte Flair was going for the figure eight. Becky Lynch trying to grab the rope. She couldn't grab it, so she had the belt, grabbed the belt, hit her on the leg, caused a DQ. And there was some good storytelling trying to hint that there was going to be some kind of screwy finish. Before the match even really started, Michael Cole points out that Becky Lynch has a championship advantage. She can lose by count out or disqualification and still keep the title. Then later on in the match, Becky Lynch tries to walk out with the title and Charlotte Flair stops her. That was right before the figure 8. And then Becky Lynch hit her with the belt to cause a disqualification. Good storytelling. I think sometimes this falls short with WWE and their in-ring storytelling. So good execution. I just, like you said, I don't like the finish. We had a couple of not really memorable matches. John Cena and Bobby Lashley versus Kevin Owens and Elias. And then one more match that it's so forgettable that I can't remember what it was. And then we have AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe for the WWE Championship. This was a slow, methodical match at the beginning, and then really picked up when Samoa Joe was down and said that his knee popped, and you really thought that he injured his knee after the table spot. So AJ and Samoa Joe from the top rope fall through a table, and then as soon as the knee was hurt, AJ went for it and worked the leg. So I thought in that aspect it was good, but a lot of people really put this match over and saying it was an excellent match. To me, it was good, but not great.
Yep. And I have to agree with that. You know, after I was reading some of the reviews and the initial reactions to this match, I was surprised at how many people actually called this match great or excellent. I think one of the things that a lot of people fall victim to is already determining a match as great or excellent based on who's in it. And I am under the impression that many people are not critical enough of AJ Styles. At least that's how I feel. AJ Styles to this point, and we're going to talk about him later on in the show, but in my very humble opinion, a lot of his recent feuds and recent matches have not lived up to the expectation that people or myself have had. You know, if he's supposed to be the very best in the business, which is what most people think of him as, you know, inside the WWE at least, you need to start delivering excellent to great matches on a more consistent basis. And I don't think you see that as often as you should from somebody like AJ Styles. I'm not trying to take anything away from the guy because he is supremely talented. He certainly is one of the best, or if not the best, wrestler within the WWE. But to me, to call this match great or excellent, you know, I just didn't see it. And not only did I not see it, but if people are calling it that, you know, has the standard gotten so low where now this is what, you know, we have to consider an excellent match? I thought it was good. They told a good story. They put in a lot of effort. There was some cool spots, but I don't think this was excellent by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. And I said this in our first podcast, and this was our first YouTube video. You could watch that video by clicking the eye above my head at the end of this video. But to me, AJ Styles does not get the criticism he sometimes deserves as WWE champion because of the lack of memorable feuds, the matches that just fall short. And in that video from our first podcast, we were comparing the championship of Brock Lesnar to the championship reign of AJ Styles. Now, say what you want about Brock Lesnar's reign. It was, you know, he was barely there. But every time he was there, his match was the main event, and you cared about that main event. Whether it was with Roman Reigns or Braun Strowman or Samoa Joe or a Fatal 4-Way, whatever it was, you cared about that match. With AJ Styles, aside from this match and this feud, can you really name me a memorable feud with AJ Styles?
Not off the top of my head. And if you mean memorable, I wouldn't consider the Nakamura feud success. No. And this is what happens. AJ Styles gets put in these dream matches, and they try to sell his matches just by the fact that it's a dream match, and there's really no build to it. That's why the Nakamura WrestleMania match, I think a lot of people felt that it fell short. This feud, on the other hand, was a decent build because of Samoa Joe and his character work. And I think that's something that is falling very short in today's wrestling, and The Undertaker said it. Kevin Nash said it, that
people just don't care about, well, Kevin Nash said that they don't care about the young wrestlers. The Undertaker said they need to focus more on characters, their character, instead of focusing on what's in the ring. Mm-hmm. I think both of those are true and kind of coincide with each other. Right. They don't care about the young guys because they don't care about, I shouldn't say they don't care about their character work, but they don't focus on it. That's why Becky Lynch is over right now. That's why Samoa Joe is over right now. That's why The Miz is over right now. They're characters. And, we'll talk about this a lot. There's a lot of cookie cutter stuff. You see it in one match, you'll see it in the other match. A lot of stuff happens. So this match, I think, was just like any other AJ Styles match, good, but not great in WWE.
I agree. I think it was good, but it wasn't great.
I think the best match of the night followed this match, and that was Buddy Murphy versus Cedric Alexander for the Cruiserweight Championship. You talk about classic wrestling here. Okay, in the sense of ring psychology and the commentary putting things over and the crowd getting into it and being invested and what a pop is supposed to be in wrestling. When Buddy Murphy kicks out of the lumbar check, the crowd erupts and it leads to the finish. That's what the pop is supposed to do. If you ever listen to Al Snow's interviews, he talks about this a lot. And this is what's getting missed in wrestling. People pop for entrances and people pop for basically any spot just because, oh, he got put through a table. Let's all pop for it. This is awesome. No, you've seen it so many times. Yeah, it's cool that we see guys going through tables, but you've seen it so many freaking times. It's like, all right. And you see it multiple times in a show sometimes. And it's like, what? Why?
Right.
This match here, you got good, high-action wrestling. And to be honest with you, the cruiserweights and the junior heavyweights won the weekend for me. Whether it was Will Ospreay versus Marty Scurll or Buddy Murphy versus Cedric Alexander, they won the weekend. They had the best matches. And Buddy Murphy had a great ovation when he won the Cruiserweight Championship. And very much so. He's very deserving of the title. And to do it on his home crowd just added to the moment.
Yep. No, I can't agree enough. So what you had in this match is what was kind of missing in some of the other matches, and that was the investment from the fans. Now, granted, they were invested in this match because Buddy Murphy is from Australia. But that being said, the match actually told a story where some of the other matches didn't. The Samoa Joe match certainly told a story, but at the same time, like you mentioned, the lumbar check being established as a finisher that nobody's going to kick out of, the fact that he did kick out of it, made a good moment. It kept the fans invested in it. So when he actually got the win, it meant that much more. To me, I definitely thought this was the match of the night. Some good, solid, competitive wrestling throughout it. Some good storytelling. I liked it.
Yeah, and I don't watch much of 205 Live, but after watching this, I will see at least the next episode of 205 Live to see what they do with Buddy Murphy and his title run, and hopefully it's not just win the title for the moment and then he drops it back to Alexander. I really hope that doesn't happen. Next, we have the 6-man tag match between the Shield and the Dogs of War. Again, there's some good storytelling here. And to me, something that lacks in WWE's product right now is in-ring storytelling. And you definitely saw that in this match. One spot in particular, you have Rollins and Roman in the middle of the ring surrounded by Drew, Braun Strowman, and Dolph Ziggler. And then all of a sudden, Dean Ambrose comes up after getting hit with a Superman punch accidentally by Roman Reigns. They do a nice close-up of Ambrose. He's got his face like, uh-oh, I'm in a big moment here. What do I do? And they're kind of teasing this is going to be it because everyone's talking about there's going to be a turn here in this match. Someone's going to turn in this match. So they tease it. And Ambrose runs through Rollins and Roman and hits Strowman and then goes for a suicide dive. Mm-hmm. Thought it was a great spot in this match.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good spot. And the other spot I really liked was the spear, when Roman speared Braun Strowman through the guardrail. So one of the things I think that was important about that and what made it work nicely is the fact that the angle of the cameraman. A lot of times WWE, you can almost anticipate the spot that's coming because, that you could see the other wrestler setting something up in the background or whatever the case may be. This, you had no idea that Roman Reigns was off to the side. So to see him spear Strowman before he actually got to Ambrose in that specific situation, I thought it made for a good spot.
Yeah, that was really a really good spot. I agree with you. And overall, I thought this was a good 6-man tag match. Dean Ambrose gets the win to further the story of, the Shield do need Ambrose more than Ambrose needs the Shield. And I'm excited to see how this story is going to progress Monday night on Raw and future weeks to come. Our other 6-woman tag match, Ronda Rousey, Nikki Bella, Brie Bella against the Riot Squad. Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, who was healed from her concussion, thank God, and Sarah Logan. Mm-hmm. Good storytelling to start this match. Who's going to start the match? Nikki or Ronda? Starting to plant the seed of Nikki turning on Ronda Rousey. Another one that people thought was going to happen. We didn't end up seeing it, but nice little tweak in there to see, okay, we're going to go down this, see where this goes.
Yeah. This has been the long rumored main event for Evolution, Nikki Bella and Ronda Rousey. So I've actually been anticipating this week after week on Raw or any of the other pay-per-views before this. So to actually see them plant the seeds for this, it's encouraging. I guess that's the match they're going to be going with. At least that's what it looks like right now. Another cool spot from this match I really liked was the double armbar.
Yes.
So that was something that I never really anticipated them doing, but they did it, and I thought it made for a cool spot, and the crowd reacted well. And not only that, but the wrestlers sold well, too.
Yes, Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan really sold that, and they did it in such a great way. They didn't go to the ground on the armbar. They actually stayed elevated, which further gives torque for Ronda to put the move on. And, they're really pumping up this armbar, and, if she connects with it, the match is over. And I really like how they are keeping that. And another thing that I like is that no one else is doing the armbar. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk more about this whole people doing things that, you're seeing one thing, cookie cutter stuff, basically. You see it in one match, you're going to see it in another match, and there's no protection of moves anymore. But let's move on to the number 1 contenders match, The Miz versus Daniel Bryan. And before you can say, for the number 1 contenders match, Daniel Bryan versus The Miz, the match was over.
Right. This was one of the matches that was one of the biggest disappointments to me. Main thing is, from the get-go of this feud, it's been kind of a letdown, and WWE has repeatedly dropped the ball on this. The reason I say that is there's such a natural storyline there already where they've already have a history. That going back to when Daniel Bryan was in NXT, that The Miz was the guy that was responsible for training him. So you have that. You have the fact that they had that one of Miz's probably biggest moments to date when he had the moment on Talking Smack where he flipped out on Daniel Bryan. That was essentially one of the things that made The Miz the character he is now.
Right.
At least got him over, or somewhat over with the crowd, at least at that point. And, just the matches they've had to this point, and then the match today was definitely a letdown. I thought today they were really going to get, a 15 minutes to actually go out there, have a legitimate match, get a winner. That didn't happen. Are they going to prolong the storyline even more? I don't know. So it's good. We'll see what happens, but this definitely left me disappointed.
They're definitely going to prolong the storyline because obviously the Miz's shoulder was up on the roll-up. So we'll see what happens on Tuesday with this. Obviously the Miz is going to point it out, I think, and I don't know if this is going to end up where the match is going to be Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles at Crown Jewel. The rumor is that it will end up being a fatal 4-way between AJ, Samoa Joe, Daniel Bryan, and The Miz. But what if they do this instead? Daniel Bryan is already slotted as the number 1 contender. SmackDown 1000, AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, I believe, are announced for a match already. They're already announced. Let Samoa Joe win that match and become the WWE champion. And now the match is Samoa Joe versus Daniel Bryan at Crown Jewel. Still have time to build it. And you'll still have a dream match that people would want to see between Samoa Joe and Daniel Bryan, but then there'll be a story behind this match because Samoa Joe will have the mic skills necessary to carry a story for this match. That I think if Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles is the path they go, it's going to fall short again because there won't be a story dedicated to this match, and people will just get dream match shoved down your throat, and we'll get Nakamura versus Styles all over again, where it just falls short.
Right. And, I think that's part of the problem. A lot of people, when they want to see these matches, it's essentially a face versus a face. And whenever you have a face versus a face, the crowd gets weird because they don't know who to cheer for. That's what happened in the first Nakamura versus AJ match at WrestleMania. This is also the reason why back in the day, Steve Austin did not want to face Hogan, because you had two really big stars. If they were both faces, who would they cheer for? It would just make for a weird atmosphere.
Yes.
You have to have somebody to boo, and you have to have somebody to cheer in order for the crowd to be invested in that. And for all the people that want to hate on Roman Reigns and John Cena and all of that, that's why those two characters are so important to the WWE, because whenever you insert one of them, you automatically have the crowd is automatically going to be invested in that match, because you either really want to boo or cheer John Cena or Roman Reigns. It happens all the time, whether it's AJ Styles or Finn Balor or anybody you put in the mat in the ring against one of those two people, the crowd is going to want to see them either win or lose. So you have to have a good guy and a bad guy a majority of the time in order for the crowd to be invested in it. If you have AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan, to me, it's just going to make for a weird atmosphere.
I agree. I think the match will be good. I really hope that if they continue this path, this is the match that AJ Styles finally has where I can say it was a great match. I haven't seen it yet, except for maybe against Brock Lesnar or John Cena.
Yep.
Other than those two matches, I haven't seen that great match from AJ Styles. So hopefully if they continue with AJ versus Daniel Bryan, that is it. Now let's move on to hopefully the last time ever. The Undertaker versus Triple H. Mm-hmm. Shawn Michaels in Triple H's corner, Kane in the Undertaker's corner. My God, this felt long.
Yeah, it felt long. It felt overbooked. And if I could put it into one word, it just felt kind of congested. Mm-hmm. There was so many different... I came away from this match feeling like Triple H can probably still deliver in the ring. If he's put in there with the right person, you give him somebody to wrestle around him, he'd still be able to deliver to the caliber of matches you'd expect from him.
Right.
I came away from this also thinking that The Undertaker is definitely at the tail end of his career, which we've all known, but I also felt like they had to do so many different things to protect the fact that he was very limited. The multiple chair shots, the fact that they had to go through multiple referees, they went through the crowd, they came back through the crowd, back into the ring, table spots, the involvement of Kane and HBK. All of this was done purposely to kind of protect The Undertaker, in my opinion. The fact that he's not able to go out there and have a legitimate 15-minute wrestling match, and I don't know if we necessarily should expect him to at this point, but it was very revealing and evident today.
Yes.
And that's how I came away from
One good
match.
thing about the match was there was good storytelling. They did implement Shawn Michaels and Kane in a way to further the story that, Shawn is trying to help Triple H to win and Kane is trying to help Undertaker to win. They used them both effectively. In-ring work, obviously, was lackluster at best for both these guys. And I think we're at a point now where, we have seen the end of The Undertaker as far as having a good match. Do we see him in his final match? Is this his final match? No, obviously from what we saw after the match, where all four of them are in the center of the ring, looks like they're taking a bow, like a Broadway musical. Shawn Michaels is, I don't know if he has some weird hallucination where he's just looking at the sky and seeing Jesus or God or something, just saying, wow. I don't know what was going on with that moment, but then you see Kane and The Undertaker attack both of them, leave them in the ring. They walk out, copyright graphic, end of the show. So it looks like the rumor of DX versus the Brothers of Destruction are going to happen, and just hide The Undertaker as much as you can in this match if it happens.
Yep.
But one thing I just want to say as a closing note for Super Showdown is, for the love of God, can we stop repeating things on the same show? Mm-hmm. You know, you have a screwy finish between Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. Then you have a screwy finish between Daniel Bryan and The Miz. Sort of separate finishes, but still what we call a dusty finish in the business. One of your biggest hype matches on the card is AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe for the WWE Championship. It's a no disqualification match. Your other big match that you're building is Undertaker versus Triple H, last time ever. All of a sudden, it becomes a no disqualification match. Like, it just seems like they have to do the same thing to get the matches over. Yep. And it's really annoying. And, you know, we'll talk about Shawn Michaels and Shawn Michaels' Sweet Chin Music. No one did the Sweet Chin Music back in the day. Now everybody has a Sweet Chin Music. The person you're trying to put over as the top guy in the company, Roman Reigns, his finishing move is a spear. Who keeps doing the spear? Charlotte Flair. No one else does the spear except for Charlotte. And every time she does it, she goes for the pin and they kick out of it. You are discrediting the finishing move of the top guy in the company. And then you have everybody doing a suicide dive, which I hate that move. It's a stupid move. Half the time it looks clunky at best. Stop doing that move. Everybody is just, it's all cookie cutter. And the reason why Triple H and The Undertaker are the last match of the show, despite being way past their prime, is because they are characters. Why do people not care about the young guys like Kevin Nash says? Because they worry about what's in the ring instead of being characters and furthering storylines and trying to put themselves over with the crowd. That's the rule of the wrestler. The job of the wrestler is to get yourself over, not, oh, they're booking me bad, or, you know, Meltzer's not giving me enough stars. No, you put yourself over by being a character. Mm-hmm. I just had to rant on that, and it's just so annoying when people say, oh, why don't they book Finn Balor to the top of the card or Seth Rollins to the top of the card? They're always pushing Roman because Roman is a character. Why don't they push AJ Styles as the top guy? Because AJ sucks at promos. He's not a character. He's a great in-ring wrestler, but he's not a freaking character. And you saw that tonight at Super Showdown. It was really evident that the characters on this show in the product right now is really lacking.
Well, you saw it not only in the show, but you saw it in the build-up. It was more evident than anything because when you look at the build-up into the into going into Super Showdown, the match that probably was most anticipated was Undertaker and Triple H. Why was that match so over and anticipated by so many of the fans? Because of the mic work, because of the fact that, one, there's history between the two. They know how to talk about that history, and they know how to get themselves or their character over. That's something that is definitely missing within the WWE, especially with some of the younger guys, because, yes, when you have the mic time, it is your chance to get yourself over. It's your chance to really kind of distinguish yourself, let people know why they should care about your match that's coming up. And a lot of times you don't see that. And I talk about the parallels between the WWE today in comparison to the UFC quite a bit. Because I bring that up now because there's a huge fight tonight. Conor McGregor versus Khabib. There are hundreds of people employed by the UFC. None of them are as influential, as profitable, or as big as a draw as Conor McGregor. Why is that?
He's a character.
Yes, because he understands who he is as a person, and he takes the volume and he turns it all the way up. He understands that if he does certain things, he will get a reaction from the fans, from the crowd, and people are going to pay for a pay-per-view to see him win or lose, and then he will make money off of that. But at least people are invested in his character and the way he presents himself. There are hundreds of guys in the UFC. And some of them say, oh, well, I'm not the type of guy that's going to act like that. I just go out there and fight. Okay, that's fine. If you want to go out there and fight, don't complain about being on the prelims and only getting paid X amount. You have to draw. These guys have to understand you have to be over. It's no different in the WWE than it is in the UFC. or anywhere else. You have to portray a character so people can love you or hate you, but at the end of the day, they'll pay to see you win or lose. Again, that's why John Cena is so important to the WWE. That's why Roman Reigns is so important to the WWE. Because people, whether they want to see him win or lose, they're going to pay to see it. Brock Lesnar, same thing. Whether he's in the UFC, whether he's in the WWE, whether he's in his recliner at his house, he portrays the same person. I never have to question who he is. The WWE did this for years with The Undertaker. You always saw them go to great lengths to protect who The Undertaker was, his character. You never saw him out of character outside of the WWE. Very, very rarely. They wouldn't even let him attend the Hall of Fame ceremonies. I don't know if he attends them now. But you never saw him, or very rarely saw him out of character giving interviews because they wanted to protect that character. So when you see a guy like Braun Strowman, who's supposed to be positioned as, you know, the biggest badass in all of the company aside from Brock Lesnar, and then you go on Instagram and you see him eating lunch with all the other faces of the company and going down a slip and slide, I'm sorry, that's hard to invest in that one particular person.
Right, and The Undertaker stressed this on an interview that he had with Pastor Ed Young earlier this week, that the wrestlers today need to focus on characters and being characters and not so much in the in-ring work. Take it from the guy who had a character work for him for almost 30 years. You know, the guy debuted at Survivor Series in 1990, and in a day where, you know, characters in wrestling, you know, it was very hard to prolong. You know, The Rock was only in his heyday for what, 5 years? Mm-hmm. Stone Cold Steve Austin, 8 maybe.
Even Hogan's original act as the All-American grew stale and he was getting booed.
Right.
In WCW.
So The Undertaker, and yes, I know he did have that stint as Big Evil and the motorcycle stuff, but take that out. That was what, 3 years?
Maybe.
So you still have almost 25 years where he was still the dead man and still found a way to change his character while still being the dead man, the phenom, the Undertaker. Today, it's all about, let me do a 540 splash and let me do a suicide dive and let me do a phenomenal forearm and a super kick and get myself over by having 5-star matches because Dave Meltzer's going to pop for me. Ooh, no, be a freaking character. That's what's lacking in WWE right now. But that's going to do it here for the WWE Super Showdown reactions. When we come back, we're comparing AJ Styles to the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. This is the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Are you following the Squared Circle Psychobabble on social media? If not, you better get onto it. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Welcome back to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valente. This is Ralph Valente. And we saw an interesting article this week that was put up on Sportskeeda. One of their contributors was saying that AJ Styles is the best WWE wrestler since Shawn Michaels. A lot of people think that, but I believe both of us here would highly disagree on that. And, you know, with AJ Styles and Shawn Michaels, there is a lot to compare to these two guys. But can you really say that AJ Styles is the next or is the best wrestler since Shawn Michaels in WWE?
In a word, no, I can't. I can't confidently sit here and tell you that AJ Styles is the best WWE wrestler since Shawn Michaels. The reason I say that is this. Look, and we talked about this earlier, and I mentioned it earlier. AJ Styles is supremely talented. He is maybe right now, currently, who's wrestling on a consistent basis, the best wrestler in the WWE. But I have not seen, well, let me put it to you this way. Shawn Michaels is considered one of the greatest of all time. He's probably up there in the top 5 on anybody's list that you're going to talk to. AJ Styles, while very good, and he probably will make some lists by the end of his tenure in the wrestling industry, he probably will make some lists as one of the greatest of all time, but nowhere close to where Shawn Michaels is going to be on other individuals' lists. So for me to say that, for me to even include AJ Styles in the same caliber or in the same conversation as Shawn Michaels, it wouldn't make sense to me.
Now, let's talk about this for a second. I think a lot of people are saying, well, look at his stuff in New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor and TNA. We're not talking about what he did before WWE. This is strictly WWE. You look at Shawn Michaels' resume. You know, he comes in and he's part of one of the greatest tag teams in WWE history, despite never winning a championship, unless you count that one night where they did win, but because the ropes broke, they didn't count it, whatever. So he has that. Then he has a great mid-card run. Then he has arguably the best main event run. And a career in WWE that spans from 1998 to 2010. That's, when you think about it, that's the year I was born to the year I graduated college. That's a long time.
Right.
And he exceeded in so many different ways and had memorable feuds with the likes of Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Triple H, Hulk Hogan, and it goes on and on and on. You talk about AJ Styles. In the 3 years that he's been in WWE, can you name me 5 matches where AJ Styles has had at least a 4 out of 5 or 9 out of 10 match in the ring with somebody? I could think of 2 off the top of my head. His match with Brock Lesnar and his match with John Cena, which to me is John Cena's best match. So give credit where it's due with AJ Styles as the in-ring wrestler. But all his other matches that he's had in WWE, you can only think of 2 that were great. I can name and it's a much bigger sample size, yes. But you talk about the 2 Shawn Michaels Undertaker matches at WrestleMania. You talk about the ladder match, the 2 ladder matches with Razor Ramon, the Iron Man match with Bret Hart, the Kurt Angle against Shawn Michaels, John Cena versus Shawn Michaels. I could keep going on and naming different matches that Shawn Michaels has had that were 4 out of 5 stars or 9 out of 10, whatever rating that you want to go on, that at least been in the A range. Where AJ Styles in WWE, I hate to quote Stephanie McMahon, but he's been a B+ player.
Yep. So I'll say this about AJ Styles. Like I said, he's definitely a talented guy, somebody who is more than capable of delivering in the ring. But at some point, if you're going to be considered the next Shawn Michaels, you better be able to deliver on a more consistent basis. And granted, like you said, it is a much smaller sample set. What I've seen from AJ Styles, we've had some great matches from him, like the ones you mentioned. His matches with John Cena are great. They could probably be considered all-time great. But when you compare some of the other matches AJ has had, by today's standard, those are good to great matches. When you think of Shawn Michaels, you think of all-time great matches.
Right.
And I wrote down a list of these matches, and then you mentioned a bunch of them. So now these are just WrestleMania matches.
Right.
So this excludes anything he's done outside of WrestleMania. But his match against Jericho, his match against Kurt Angle, his match against Cena, which you mentioned all those, his second match against Undertaker, his match against Ric Flair,
I forgot
where he
the Flair
retired
one.
Ric Flair, the Iron Man match against Bret Hart, the ladder match with Razor Ramon, and then arguably the best match of all time, which, that's debatable, but it's considered probably within the top 5, his match against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. Those are just his matches at WrestleMania, which WrestleMania, as we all know, is essentially the Super Bowl of professional wrestling. That's when the lights shine brightest. That's when you have to perform, because that's when the spotlight is on you. Shawn Michaels thrives in those moments.
Yes.
AJ Styles to this point has not. And we talked about this before, but all his most recent matches and all of his most recent feuds, in my estimation and in my humble opinion, have not lived up to expectation. It's not that AJ Styles isn't phenomenal. It's not that he's not great. It's not that he's not talented. It's the simple fact that if you are going to be compared to one of the very best of all time, you better deliver on a consistent basis. And I'm sorry, but AJ Styles does not deliver on a frequent enough basis in the ring.
I agree, obviously, but let's dive into this a little bit more. If not AJ Styles as the best wrestler since Shawn Michaels, who is in WWE?
So there's two people that come to mind. One of them, I initially when we talked about this yesterday, I said no. And I thought about it a little bit more. The one person that I might compare to being, maybe being a little bit below Shawn Michaels' level would be CM Punk. He's very good in the ring. He's not the greatest. He's not the most technical. The problem with CM Punk is, again, it's a short sample set. He had a really high peak, and aside from that, there's not too much to go off. Now, again, we talked about the importance of characters. Whenever he was given the ball, he ran with it.
Yes.
So the stuff he did with the Straight Edge Society, granted, it's probably not remembered as being, all-time great. If you go back and look at the body of work and the promos he cut, there's some really good stuff there, and then obviously you have him during his peak where he feuded with John Cena and had some amazing matches and all of that stuff. So is CM Punk better than AJ Styles? In ring, I'd say no, but if you compared what they do on the mic, CM Punk blows him out of the water all day. It's not even a question.
Now,
not even debatable.
Another person you could talk about in this situation, very high peak, but at the same time, small sample size. And that's someone that actually was trained by Shawn Michaels, Daniel Bryan.
Right.
Okay. So Daniel Bryan peaked in 2014, surprisingly after CM Punk left at the Royal Rumble. Had some great matches, had some memorable moments, especially WrestleMania 30, the Yes movement. He was huge.
Yeah.
The problem is there's just a small sample size. And with Daniel Bryan, in-ring work could be I don't know, as comparable to Shawn Michaels. Definitely a great in-ring worker.
Yeah.
On the mic, doesn't come close. And that's the other thing that people I think are lacking when it comes to trying to compare AJ Styles and Shawn Michaels or any of these guys. Shawn Michaels was a great talker as a face, was a great talker as a heel, was a great talker as a tweener. He was great as a tag team guy. He was great in factions. He was great by himself. There was not a time where Shawn Michaels did not lack the versatility of everything that he can do in the ring, out of the ring, as a character. He was just so good at all of it.
We didn't even bring up the DX.
Right.
We didn't even mention that. All I mentioned here was strictly what he's done at WrestleMania. And I was able to list off 10 legitimate matches where, those are considered some of the best matches of all time at the biggest show of them all. We didn't even get into all his other credentials. And now we have people out there, again, talking about the standard. We have people out there comparing AJ Styles to Shawn Michaels. I don't even know where this comes into question. It's not comparable.
Right. Well, I mean, you talk about AJ Styles is probably the best in-ring wrestler right now. Right now. And with his title reign that he has, and I think that's where the conversation kind of starts. And of course, the teased dream match that everybody around WrestleMania time, the rumor is AJ Styles versus Shawn Michaels. It happens every year. We talked about Shawn Michaels coming out of retirement throughout this show and throughout this podcast on the past couple of weeks. So that's where the conversation starts. But here's where it finishes. AJ Styles and I keep stressing this, he can't talk. He's not a good promo. Let's look at the last 2 weeks of AJ Styles on SmackDown. You talk about the home invasion spot where Joe was there. It's like watching a high school play in the ring with AJ Styles. He needs acting classes. And then he goes on the next week and is at his house and he's cutting the promo while he's not there and apologizing to the crowd. And it's like, my God, this is terrible.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, Shawn Michaels he's had his fair share of bad promos, but for the most part, Shawn Michaels delivered on the mic just as well as he did in a match. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we're even talking about this and people are even making this comparison is unbelievable.
So I think one of the comparisons that might be fair to make is back when Shawn Michaels was popular. Well, at roughly right. He's always been popular, but when he was at his peak, his biggest nemesis at the time was Bret Hart. And Ric Flair has said this on multiple occasions. Ric Flair has mentioned this, and I agree with him. So Bret Hart is a very technical wrestler. He was very good in the ring, but he didn't necessarily draw, and he wasn't the best on the mic.
No.
And that's very comparable to AJ Styles. He's a guy that can wrestle. He's a decent promo on occasion. He's actually a bigger draw probably than Bret Hart, but the comparison's there. They're both technical guys, but at the end of the day, this is a big part of this is playing a character and getting yourself over, like we mentioned. And then, the part that I think that's going to really bother people is the fact that who do I think is a better or the biggest guy since Shawn Michaels has left? I'm not even a huge fan of his, but it has to be John Cena.
Yes.
And I know that's going to make people melt, and they're probably going to freak out, and their ears are going to bleed, and they're going to say, I don't know what I'm talking about, but you have to be honest with yourself. This is a guy who repeatedly has delivered in the ring, no matter who he's been with, repeatedly come out and reinvented himself, whether it's this moveset or, different characters. When the lights shine brightest, he's there competing and proving that he is one of the best ever and that he's one of the top tier guys, despite not being there on a more consistent basis still. He's had some memorable feuds. He's had some really big matches. And if there's anybody who's doubting this, go on YouTube and look up the exchange right before their match where John Cena essentially just embarrassed AJ Styles in the ring. The promo he cut on him, I mean, it was so evident that AJ is not to that level. That
right.
What else can you say? Yeah, and I know that's something that people don't want to hear, but I'm sorry John Cena can't do a moonsault into a leg drop or whatever, but that's not what professional wrestling is. It's telling a story, and John Cena does a better job at that than AJ Styles, at least to this point.
Right. And you talk about the memorable feuds that John Cena's had. Cena and Shawn. Cena and Punk. Cena and Daniel Bryan. Yep. Cena and AJ Styles. Like
Roman, Edge.
Everybody that we've talked about in this segment, Cena has had memorable feuds with. Similar to how Shawn Michaels had almost memorable feuds with almost anybody he was put with.
Yep. And you'll get the excuse, oh well, those are the greats, they had to carry him. Well, okay, if that's the case, how come when Cena wrestled AJ Styles, they were able to have an amazing match, and since that feud, AJ Styles has had one amazing match.
Right.
Against Brock Lesnar. Another guy who, supposedly he doesn't know how to wrestle either. Deliver. Go out there and deliver. You're wrestling the guys like Nakamura and Samoa Joe. It's not like you're wrestling cans. These guys are legitimate good wrestlers. Deliver in the ring, and then maybe I'll compare you to some of the best ever. People are scared to criticize AJ Styles. Why? I don't know. He's great. He has all of the talent in the world to be one of the greats, if not one of the best ever. Prove it.
Right. So I think that leaves it there, that we obviously don't think that there's a comparison between AJ Styles and Shawn Michaels. But if you think there is, comment below. And if you like what you saw today, hit the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications, and follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Coming up next on the Squared Circle Psychobabble, shoot or work on the weekly wrestling rumors. It's next on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Are you following the Squared Circle Psychobabble on social media? If not, you better get onto it. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Welcome back to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Michael Valente alongside Ralph Valente. It's time now for Shoot or Work, where we take the weekly wrestling rumors and say whether or not it's going to happen. We say shoot. If not, we say work. Simple as that. Our first shoot or work of the day has to do with what's coming up at Survivor Series. Now, WrestleVotes is saying that We won't see the Raw versus SmackDown type of pay-per-view, thank God, but instead we will see more of a traditional Survivor Series pay-per-view, and including this will be a match in which Team Angle versus Team Corbin to decide who will be the GM of Raw. Ralph, shoot or work, Team Angle versus Team Corbin.
I think it's probably a shoot. I mean, they're going to have some type of payoff with this whole Angle versus Corbin thing, so why not have it at Survivor Series? So, yeah, shoot.
I say shoot as well, and I think what the match will end up being, you'll have on one side will be The Shield, Kurt Angle, and Finn Balor, and on the other side you have Baron Corbin, the Dogs of War, and we need a fifth guy there, so maybe Triple H. Maybe, because obviously the tie-in with Kurt Angle and Stephanie McMahon, Triple H goes in there to try to prevent Angle from winning the GM. So that would be a good way to do that match. So, and I think Kurt Angle wins that, or Team Angle wins. The next rumor that we have has to do with the next major pay-per-view for WWE, Royal Rumble 2019. So we talked about this last week, and you can watch the video at the end of this video by clicking the eye above my head, that we were saying that Daniel Bryan was going to win the Royal Rumble. Now that we saw what happened on Super Showdown, he is the number one contender at Crown Jewel against AJ Styles. And the rumor now is the winner of the Royal Rumble will be a repeat winner. Shoot or work, the 2019 Royal Rumble winner will be a repeat winner.
I'm going to say work only because I can't imagine who it would be off the top of my head.
All right, so let's break this down a little bit. Here are the current active members that have won the Royal Rumble. You have Roman Reigns, who is currently the Universal Champion, so unless he's dropping it anytime soon, he's not going to win it. Sheamus, who has been in the tag team picture for the last couple of years, I don't see him winning it. You have Triple H. I don't think they're going to put him in a main event spot anymore. If The Undertaker is still going to have a match at WrestleMania, maybe he's in the Royal Rumble match, but that's another potential guy. Who else has won the Royal? Shinsuke Nakamura won it last year. Randy Orton has won it twice. I don't think either one of them are going to win. But here's an interesting one. If they do decide to do a repeat winner, no one specified on who it was. They didn't specify that it, in fact, was a Royal Rumble in January winner. Who won the greatest Royal Rumble?
Strowman.
What if Braun Strowman wins the 2019 Royal Rumble?
It's possible.
I mean,
of the people you just named, if it's going to be a repeat individual, I'd probably pick Orton, but I really don't think they're going to go with a repeat winner.
So who wins it instead?
Who wins it? Maybe Daniel Bryan. I don't know.
If Daniel Bryan doesn't win at Crown Jewel, that's still on the table. If he wins at Crown Jewel, now that opens up possibly The Miz winning at the Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm. Could be Ambrose. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you could have Ambrose or Rollins and then set up the Shield triple threat. That would be a nice match at WrestleMania. I don't know if that main events.
Unless you have Brock win. He's won.
He's won. That's another possibility. But
that'll be after probably. Well, it depends when his UFC fight is.
If Brock wins the Royal Rumble, do you put him against Roman Reigns again, or maybe go against the SmackDown champion?
Listen. If they're gonna do anything with Brock Lesnar, like I said a couple of weeks ago, I felt like, well, I think AJ could have been one of the guys to take the belt off him, and it would have meant more. They could have a good match. We already know it. We've seen it. If Brock wins, go wrestle AJ Styles. At least we know what we're going to get. At least fans will come out of that entertained. I have no interest in seeing Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar anytime soon again. Well, I'm going to have to see it at Crown Jewel, but
there's two other possibilities, I think, that if the rumors are true, that it could be the Royal Rumble winner. One is The Rock, which I don't think is happening.
No.
So before I go on to our next shoot or work, I will say that this is a work. I do not think a repeat winner is happening. I think The Miz will, now that Daniel Bryan is the number one contender, he'll end up winning the championship, and The Miz will be the Royal Rumble winner and set up that match. I still think that match is happening at WrestleMania, although my story got thrown out the window today. The other person that I think will win or could potentially win the Royal Rumble, if they're talking repeat winner, is Batista, who has won twice. And the rumor is that even after he shows up at SmackDown 1000 with Evolution, WWE will be signing him for one last run. Shoot or work. WWE signing Batista for one last run.
I know he's going to be at SmackDown 1000, and that would lead me to believe that, he's going to have some involvement, maybe a couple of years down the road, going forward, but I don't think he's going to have a legitimate, long-lasting run. The only reason I say that is he has a pretty substantial acting career right now. He doesn't need to come back. I don't think so. I think we see him at SmackDown 1000. We'll see him sporadically over the course of the next several years, making appearances here and there, but I don't think he's got another run left in him.
I think he does have a run left in him. He definitely wants to come back and do a full-time run, and eventually the payoff would be a match with Triple H. And I think that would be a good match, and Triple H really doesn't have anything set up right now for WrestleMania. Maybe this is how they set it up, and Batista could do a 6-month full-time run, because I don't think he has anything lined up for as far as acting right now. And I think he would definitely be a big draw with everything that he's done with Marvel. So you get those people tuned in, and he's been in a Bond movie, so maybe you get some Bond fans in there.
He's still going to get booed.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
He wants to be a heel. He even said it himself. When he won the Royal Rumble and they were trying to do the face run, he said that was a bad idea from the beginning.
Yeah, I know.
He wants to be a heel.
100%. They didn't do him any services in how they booked him. But
I think with that said, shoot, he is going to sign. He will have one last run. So, we will see Triple H versus Batista, I think, to pay that off. Moving over to New Japan Pro Wrestling. So last week, if you saw on YouTube, Tetsuya Naito teased that there will be a new member in his faction, Los Ingobernables. If I said that right, Ingobernables. There we go. Ingobernables de Japon. They'll have a new member in the faction with the injury of Hiromu Takahashi when he broke his neck earlier this year in San Francisco. One of the rumored people to be joining this faction is none other than Pentagon Jr., which obviously Naito being part of CMLL when he started the faction over there, or the faction started there, he traded over to Japan. So shoot or work, Pentagon Jr. is the new member of Los Ingobernables de Japon.
I'm going to say maybe, I guess this would be a shoot. Who else could it possibly be?
They're saying possibly Rey Fenix.
Yeah.
Possibly Dragon Lee, who was the one that broke Takahashi's neck. I've even heard Chris Jericho as a potential rumor.
I don't buy that.
So I think this is a work. I don't think where Pentagon Jr. is right now and all the different places that he's in with Impact and Major League Wrestling and all the other companies that he's in, I just don't see him being also part of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Although it would be great, I just don't see it. Moving on to our last shoot or work of the night, has to do with Chris Jericho, is popping up again in the rumors. And this time, again, they're talking about him coming to Impact Wrestling, and not only to just a simple Impact show, but their big pay-per-view coming up in a couple weeks, Bound for Glory. Shoot or work, Y2J, Bound for Glory.
Work. This is what boggles my mind. I have no idea where these rumors spring up from, but for 5 years now, Jericho have been rumored to he's going to debut on TNA. The same amount of it's like these baseless rumors just spring up on the internet, and then unfortunately people report them as truth.
I don't know if it's baseless.
This one might not be baseless. It remains to be seen. But some of the things I've seen, Steve Austin's going to come back. Paul Heyman's going to have a faction. And guess what? Ronda Rousey and Kevin Owens, they're going to be in that faction. Hulk Hogan's going to be at Super Showdown. Where do these things come from?
Right.
I don't understand how people come up with this stuff and then other people pick up on this and report it and say, "Oh, well, yeah, this is what's rumored." Okay, well, I could rumor that I don't know, Juventud Guerrero stubbed his toe at home last week. Who gives a shit? Show me something, show me facts, show me something that has some type of credibility to it. Something there's going to be someone who won the Royal Rumble is going to win it again. Okay, let me guess. It's going to be Shawn Michaels, who's coming out of retirement, who's going to win it again.
Could be.
These people come up with this shit and report it, and it's like, come on, are you honestly proclaiming to be? I don't pretend to be a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I'm giving you my opinion. You either accept it or you don't. But I don't sit up here and pretend, I'm going to report this just so I can get somebody to like my page. No, well, I'm not doing that shit. Show me Jericho either shows up or he doesn't.
Well, I mean,
I don't understand where this comes from.
Where the rumor comes from is, one, his friendship with Don Callis, which led to him going to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Two, Jericho saying that he'll never work a North American show and then showed up at All In. Three, the video that happened a couple weeks ago on Impact where crowd was chanting for Y2J and the camera stayed on the crowd and pretty much let the cheering happen. And Don Callis didn't really shut down saying that Jericho wasn't coming. And so, I mean, it does bring Impact Wrestling into the forefront and people talking about them. Do I think Y2J is coming? I didn't think he was going to be at All In and he showed up. So just because of you never know it could happen. Something tells me this is a shoot. This is happening, but only time will tell.
Then the main event of WrestleMania will be Steve Austin and Hogan. And the special guest referee will be The Rock because he's coming back too. And then Shawn Michaels will do a moonsault off the top of Hell in a Cell. Fairy tales of the internet brought to you by Professional Wrestling.
Well, that's going to do it here for our Shoot or Work segment. When we come back, it's Swerve Me Wrong, where I have to prove to people that WWE's poor ratings is not because of bad booking. This is the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Are you following the Squared Circle Psychobabble on social media? If not, you better get onto it. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Welcome back to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Michael Valente alongside Ralph Valente. It's time now for Swerve Me Wrong, where I have to prove that the popular opinion is wrong, and I have 10 minutes to do so. Tonight we're talking about the WWE poor ratings. And this past week we had Raw hit their all-time lows, SmackDown hitting their all-time lows, and everybody on the internet is saying that the booking is the reason. It's just bad booking. It's not fun to watch. So, Ralph, you are defending the bad booking as the reason. I'm defending that it's not. There's other reasons for it. So, we have 10 minutes on the clock, and that 10 minutes starts now. So, Ralph, I'll let you start. Why is the bad booking the reason the ratings are dropping?
The answer to that is actually quite simple, and I alluded to this earlier. So, wrestling nowadays is considered sports entertainment. If it is not entertaining or it is not intriguing enough to draw you away from another television show, why would people watch it? If it's not entertaining, people are either going to choose something that is more entertaining to take up their time or just shut the TV off altogether and do something else. Now, the thing with that is obviously, like I said, this is entertainment. There has to be some sort of drama to it. Aside from just the wrestling, it needs to tell a story. They're not producing anything compelling. At least that would be my opinion. It hasn't been good in quite some time.
Well, let me tell you this. Let me ask you this. On Raw, what was the most talked about segment on the show?
Kevin Owens and Elias.
Right. Okay. Because of the reaction that they got and the loud boos because Elias mentioned the Supersonics, which I didn't realize was that sour of a spot. But then again, we can relate being from Connecticut, how the Whalers left Hartford. But that was part of the third hour, which was the lowest of the 3 hours in the ratings, which usually is the case. And it drew 2.19 million or whatever the rating was, something like that. What was and I'm going to ask you this. Do you know what the highest viewed segment on YouTube was from Raw?
Was it that?
No, it was not.
What was it?
It was the main event with Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, Triple H, and Kane.
Not surprised.
And that had, at the time I saw this yesterday, 4.6 million views. So, obviously, people are still watching the product. It might not be on traditional cable. And that's where this argument falls short, where people are saying that the bad booking is the reason for the ratings. You look at anything in television right now in ratings, they're all diving. I work in television. I know this. Television networks don't care about ratings anymore because they don't necessarily tell you who's watching and who's not. There's so many different ways you could watch a show on WWE Raw. You could watch it the traditional way on cable. Now there's streaming providers. Sling, DirecTV Now, YouTube TV, all those other ones. I do not think those come into play as far as the ratings are concerned. Then you have the DVR and people recording on their DVRs. That somewhat has the ratings involved, but not as weighted as someone actually sitting there and watching. You have YouTube, which WWE, I said this last week, is the 8th most subscribed channel on YouTube. So obviously people are watching the product. There are 2 million subscribers on the network. People are watching. The reason for the bad ratings, part of it could be the bad booking. They've definitely alienated some fans, and people are finding alternate programming, whether it's Impact Wrestling or New Japan Pro Wrestling or Ring of Honor, wherever you're going. But at the end of the day, when you look at all the ratings of all the wrestling shows, WWE goes beyond what Impact and Ring of Honor and New Japan are doing.
Oh yeah, of course they do.
And let's look at it this way. You look at Fighting Spirit Unleashed. There were obviously empty seats at the Walter Pyramid, which I think seats 5,000 people. If it's such a great and better product than WWE, then why can't they fill a 5,000 seat arena if it's that good and that alternate programming? Whereas WWE just sold out the MCG in Melbourne, Australia, which seated 70,000 people.
Right.
So obviously the product is good enough where they're still selling out 70,000 seats in a stadium where New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is this great alternate programming to WWE, can't even fill a 5,000 seat arena.
Just tell me again, what was the number 1 rated YouTube segment that you said from Raw?
Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Kane, and Triple H.
And what main evented the Super Showdown?
That match.
Okay. And you just said that Monday Night Raw had the lowest ratings in, I don't know, was it a couple of years or how?
Ever,
long?
all time.
All time. How do you not see that problematic in multiple ways? Because
ratings is not a barometer like it is.
So the problem is this. The thing we're trying to discuss is it the booking? A part of the booking means that you're establishing new stars. And if you're here telling me and trying to convince me that it has nothing or not as much to do with booking and that they shouldn't be concerned, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. And the simple fact is this. The Undertaker and Triple H are from the Attitude Era.
Yes.
All past their prime, as is Kane, as is Shawn Michaels.
But but hold on. Before you finish your thought, if this is where I think you're going, you're going to go with they're from the Attitude Era, they're recognized names, so they should be, the people are watching it. And that's why the YouTube views are up. But then why were the ratings down?
The ratings were, well, like you just said, that speaks to your point. There's alternate ways to find their stuff. If somebody just is interested in Shawn Michaels and Triple H and Undertaker, they're going to go find that stuff.
Right.
But then you have that one segment with the oldest guys on the card who people want to see, and that they could care less. And we talked about this, care less about all the younger talent.
But that's not because of bad booking.
It absolutely is, and let me explain to you why. So, Super Showdown, was Carmella on there?
No.
Where was Carmella doing 2 months ago?
She was the women's champion fighting Asuka.
Right. Was Jinder Mahal on there?
No.
Where was he like 3 months ago?
He was in a feud with Roman Reigns.
And what was he doing before that feud with Roman Reigns?
He was the WWE champion and US champion.
So you have a guy who carried 2 very prestigious titles, who we were supposed to care about, and Carmella, who was the women's champion for however long. She beat Asuka, she beat Charlotte, all these accolades, and now all of a sudden, here comes Super Showdown, 70,000 seats. Where were they? Were they on the show?
No.
And that is not bad booking to you. That is not that you don't think that tells a story where it says, okay, these people are good enough to be champion, but 3 months later, sorry, you can't even get on a card because I'm sorry, we just managed to book you into the title match, but somehow you're not good enough. That speaks volumes because it tells you that.
Does that speak volumes on bad booking or the fact that they're not over enough to be in an overseas show?
It speaks to both.
No. So Jinder Mahal, we all knew that was an experiment to try to expand into India. That's the only reason.
Further bad booking. This all ties together.
He became WWE champion to try to further market into India. And when they were done with their India shows, he dropped the title. It's up to Jinder Mahal at that point to get himself sustained being worthy enough to be a WWE champion. He did not do that. But this is not whether or not the booking has been good or bad. The argument is if the booking is the reason for the poor ratings. It is not. There are too many other reasons for the poor ratings.
Absolutely. The booking is absolutely one of the biggest aspects for the bad ratings because of all the things you just said. Jinder Mahal was used as an experiment to get into India. Then if he's not good enough to be the champion for any other reason aside from that, he shouldn't be the champion. And if he's not good enough,
and that's why they took the title off him.
He should have never been champion. That's booking. That's poor booking.
No,
and the fact that he was given that
how many times have we seen this where they try to put a belt on a guy to see if he can be a worthy enough champion, and it doesn't work? That's not bad booking. That's just how it works.
That's just bad booking in the sense. Why do you think Carmella was a failure as a champion?
No.
Then why all of a sudden is this person who was supposed to be so prestigious all of a sudden now she's dancing next to K-Quick in the friggin' middle of the ring? It's stupid. That's bad booking because it tells your fans this person was good enough to be your champion last month, but she's not good enough this week.
But only so many people could be on the card. And when and if Carmella is supposed to be a heel, and the only women's matches you have on the card right now are a match with the Iconics, who are a hometown wrestlers, and Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair, which is your championship match. Yep. You're not going to throw Carmella in there. So why send her overseas?
Because it delegitimizes the fact that those people made those accomplishments. And it tells the viewers, this is another reason why the booking ties into the ratings. It tells the viewer that these were your champions and now they're not good enough to be on a pay-per-view. Not only they're not good enough to be on a pay-per-view, they're not good enough for main event spots. So stop watching. You should not care about this product. That's a big part of it. The other big part of it
is... And yet they filled out a 70,000 seat arena. And they are about to...
And they're going to... good. You just said the ratings. WWE's name is going to sell itself despite anything. My main point is this. If your main thing is going to be the stars of yesteryear and you can't get guys over, which we talked about because either the WWE can't get them over or they can't get themselves over, there's something to be alarmed about, especially when you see the ratings dropping. If guys can't get themselves over and all people want to see, which you've just confirmed by your 4-point-whatever million views on YouTube... If all they want to see is the stars of yesteryear and they could care less about all these young guys, there's a problem there. And that is translated in their ratings.
No. So I will close with this. What I'm saying is you have a segment that was on the lowest rated hour of the 3 be the highest viewed segment on YouTube. And the second one behind that was Elias and Kevin Owens. Mm-hmm. So you're telling me that because the 2 segments that were not that were highly viewed on YouTube and were lowly viewed on television, you're saying that that's the reason why the ratings are bad?
Yes, because nobody
So what I'm saying is there are too many ways to watch Monday Night Raw and watch SmackDown that ratings don't matter. In television today, ratings don't matter. The only time where ratings matter is live football and sporting events, and anything else. Anything else, ratings don't matter because you have Hulu, you have YouTube, you have streaming devices, and people are not watching like they were anymore. And the decline is slowly becoming. I actually had this conversation with someone earlier today. Where do you think cable's going? It's going to be obsolete within 5 years. I work in the industry. Trust me.
I'm not disagreeing with that. Here's my point. You've already established that Raw was the lowest rated Raw of all time, correct?
Yes.
And you've already established that the one thing that was the highest viewed was the Undertaker segment, correct?
Yes.
And we've also established that there's alternate ways to view things, and people go out of their way to view those things on YouTube or somewhere else, right?
Exactly.
And knowing that the Undertaker segment was the highest viewed thing,
that goes to show you it's not the bad booking that's causing bad ratings.
It absolutely does, because you have the oldest people on the card who are still the largest draw. And not only that, but people are tuning out not only on YouTube, which are confirmed by the numbers, but they're also tuning out on television itself. Nobody's watching Raw, not because, oh, well, it's cable and nobody watches cable anymore. Nobody's watching it because it sucks. It's garbage. Week after week, it's The Shield and Strowman and oh my, don't even get me started on Corbin. You're not going to defend the belt. Oh, really? Gee, he doesn't have to defend his belt. I can't believe it. That's so shocking. It's terrible. It's bad booking on top of having way too many people on the show, too many characters, and not knowing what to do with them. That's the problem with WWE.
All right, that's going to do it here for Swerve Me Wrong on the Squared Circle Psycho Babble. What do you think? Comment below. Go on our social media at SCPB Podcast and use the hashtag SCPB Podcast to tell us, is it the bad ratings because of the bad booking, or is it because of alternative ways to watch the show? For Ralph Valente, my name is Michael Valente. Thank you for listening to the Squared Circle Psycho Babble. Good night, everybody.